What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my full card breakdown and predictions for UFC Vegas 90. We got Brendan Allen going against Chris Curtis 2.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out.
And we are back for another full card breakdown and prediction video breaking down UFC Vegas 90. We are back in the Apex card headlined by Brendan Allen and Chris Curtis. They're going after it for the second time. First off, I want to sincerely apologize for the late release, getting this out here on a Thursday. I got really sick on Sunday, and I thought it was going to get better. It got worse day after day. And on a Thursday, I'm feeling okay enough to come on here and go through 13 fights, hopefully as quick as possible with no problems. But yeah, I'm not sure if it was the Atlantic City card that got me severely sick or taping Cynthia Calvillo, maybe a mixture of both. But yeah, I've been feeling just awful this entire week. But you know, I guess the good part about that is I've been doing nothing but taping UFC 300 fights. So I guess the good news is I'll be getting out my UFC 300 full card breakdown Saturday probably. I've taped, I think, all but like 2 fights, so be on the lookout for an early UFC 300 release for the full card breakdowns. But yeah, I do apologize for getting this out here on a Thursday. A couple guys asked me if I'm going to completely skip this card. No, I would never do that, but I hate getting videos out this late, but it is what it is. I was physically not able to go through like 13 fights in a row. But yeah, looking forward to this card. Like I said, back in the Apex, decent card, should be fun. Decent start time as well, which I'm looking forward to. Before we get into it, if you guys could please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, be on the lookout for the rest of the content going live Friday for final thoughts and Saturday for best bet. And then, like I said, next week for UFC 300, early content and a bunch of content as well for a phenomenal card in UFC 300. Really looking forward to that one. Lots of spots sticking out. Probably going to actually start getting at some early bets for UFC 300 the next couple days here. All right, with all that out of the way, going to try to get through these fights as fast and as best as possible, guys. We're going to start with Mellisa Mullins going against Nora Cornolle. We got Mellisa Mullins, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach, 6-0, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Nora Cornolle, 34 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach, 7-1. And 5-0 in her last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We have Mellisa Mullins opening up minus 255, currently minus 330. Nora Cornolle opening up plus 215. She's currently a plus 270 underdog, and it's really hard to look at Nora Cornhole's last fight and not think that Melissa Dixon's going to go out there and do the same exact thing, if not even better than Jocelyn Edwards did. I mean, Jocelyn Edwards went out there, and typically it's like Jocelyn Edwards is the one getting taken down and controlled. Like that's kind of her thing, but it was actually Jocelyn Edwards that went out there, took down Nora Cornholle like 5-6 times, controlled her for over half the fight, put her into a ton of bad spots, and Cornholle won the fight, but no, she lost the fight. I'm not sure what the judges were watching there. I think there was some hometown cooking going on because Jocelyn Edwards did win that fight, and it was a horrible look for Cornholle. Like, Cornholle has a hole in her game, which is the takedown defense, the ground game, and Mellisa Mullins, she's very good on the mat. That's her thing. I believe she's a brown belt in BJJ, but it's her ground and pound that's vicious. When she gets on top, gets into those dominant positions, she is vicious on the mat, and I think she's going to give Cornholle a lot of problems here. So I like Mullins to go out there, get this fight down to the mat, and get a TKO in the second round. Moving on, we got a striker versus grappler matchup. We got Dylan Budka going against Cesar Almeida. We got Dylan Budka, 24 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach, 7-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Cesar Almeida, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach, 4-0, and obviously 4-0 in his only 4 fights. We got Dylan Budka opening up the dog, plus 145. He's now minus 145. Cesar Almeida opened up minus 170, and he is currently plus 125. And yeah, it's a striker versus grappler matchup. It's a striker versus wrestler matchup, I should say. Dylan Budka, really good wrestling background. We saw in the Contender Series, he was able to get fights down to the mat early and often. Probably the worst fight of all time on the Contender Series, and I was actually shocked. I was literally shocked to see Dana White give him a contract, but he did, and here we are. And yeah, Dylan Budka is going to obviously try to get this fight down to the mat, try to push Almeida against the cage. Almeida is going to be the better striker. It's not even close. Almeida, extensive kickboxing background. So yeah, striker versus grappler matchup. One thing I'll note is, this year especially, they've been really putting an emphasis on damage over control, right? Like we've seen fights where one guy will land one solid shot in the entire round, and the other guy gets 4 minutes or so of control. They'll give it to the guy that landed that big shot, right? So that's kind of why I'm leaning the dog here in Cesar Almeida, just because on the feet I think it's one-way traffic. But then again, I could also see a scenario where Dylan Budka is able to rack up just a ton of control, but is he really going to do much with it? I don't believe so. I think we have a close fight on our hands. Give me the dog here in Cesar Almeida, just doing a little bit more, landing a little bit more bigger shots, having bigger moments, and ultimately coming away with a decision win. Next, we got Gene Matsumoto going against Dan Argueta. We got Gene Matsumoto, 24 years old, 5'6", with a 68.5-inch reach, 14-0, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Dan Argueta, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach, 9-1 and 2-1 and 2 no contests his last 5 fights. He has 2 no contests in a row. We got Gene Matsumoto actually opening up the dog, plus 120, currently minus 155. Dan Argueta opening up minus 140, he's currently plus 135. And yeah, I think we have another very live dog here in Dan Argueta. It's another close fight. Gene Matsumoto, I'm really impressed with the guy. I think his striking's very good. But what I did notice was he has a tendency to play off his back a little bit too much. He's a black belt in BJJ, but he can be taken down. And like I said, he's content to play off his back, and you can lose a ton of minutes doing that. And on the feet, you have to favor Matsumoto, but Dan Argueta is a decent striker in his own right. I just feel like Dan Argueta is going to have the wrestling to get this fight down to the mat and potentially win 2 out of the 3 rounds here. But another really close fight. I think a lot of these fights on this card are close, but I'm going to take Dan Argueta to go out there, get takedowns, stay safe on top, and ultimately win a grinding-based decision. All right, moving on. We got Piera Rodriguez going against Cynthia Calvillo. We got Piera Rodriguez, 31 years old, 5'3", with a 63.5-inch reach, 9-1, 4-1. In her last 5 fights, Cynthia Calvillo, 36 years old, 5'4", with a 64-inch reach, 9-6, and 0-5 in her last 5 fights. Piera Rodriguez opening up minus 180, currently minus 130. And Calvillo opening up plus 155, currently plus 110. See, these odds have moved a ton throughout the week. It's kind of why I hate doing videos on Thursdays or even later in the week at all. But yeah, I'm picking Calvillo, the dog here as well. It looks like apparently many are. Do I have confidence in it? No. Like, how can you have confidence in somebody that hasn't won a fight in like 6 fights? But it's a close fight here. Piera Rodriguez, I'm not really impressed in the slightest. Like, she's a solid grappler, an okay striker, but Cynthia Calvillo, although she's not won in a very long time, I think she had her best performance in her last fight against Lupe Godinez, in a fight where she lost, but you could make a strong case that she actually pulled off the upset and beat Lupe Godinez, which would have been a good win. Cynthia Calvillo has really good takedown defense. She's a great grappler in her own right. It's like, is Rodriguez going to take down Calvillo? I doubt it. Calvillo, nobody really takes her down. And then on the feet, it's probably close. Like, if anything, it's Calvillo that might be able to go out there and get takedowns if she wants them. So, again, another very close fight. Calvillo's fought the much, much better competition overall. She's clearly fighting for her job. I mean, it kind of feels like she's been fighting for her job, but I mean, if she loses this fight, it's for sure it. So I'm taking Calvillo here for the upset, but this line's closed up a ton, and I would not recommend betting on this. Next, we got Victor Hugo going against Pedro Falcao. Very short notice replacement here in Falcao. Victor Hugo, he's 31 years old, 5'7", with a 71-inch reach, 24-4, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Pedro Falcao, he's 31 years old, 5'6", with a 66-inch reach, 16-3, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. We have Hugo opening at minus 150, currently minus 140. These odds just dropped not too long ago, I think yesterday or last night. Falcao open at plus 130, currently plus 120. And yeah, did not know what to expect going into the tape on Falcao. And I actually do like Hugo quite a bit. I think he's a very interesting fighter, very slick submission grappling game. The nickname is Striker, and I'll never forget looking into his fights for the first time, because I see his nickname is Striker. I'm like, all right, let's see some high level striking. And then he's going in there and shooting takedowns within the first 10 seconds in all of his fights. So haven't really seen much striking from the dude, to be honest. But yeah, very slick grappler. But he's going against Falcao, who's a very good grappler in his own right. Falcao's a black belt in BJJ. He's been one for a while, I believe. And I think it's another close fight where I'm kind of leading the underdog. I know I've picked a million dogs already. I think I might pick one more in Falcao. I know he's coming in here on very short notice, but this is a guy that fought on the Contender Series a while ago. I think it was back in like 2021. He won the fight pretty dominantly, ended up getting a nasty TKO in the third round for some reason. I'm not sure why, but he wasn't signed. But yeah, he showed, the cardio to go in there in the third round, get a late finish. Hugo, I kind of worry about the cardio. I kind of worry about him slowing down. Like on the Contender Series, it looked like he started to really slow down in that second round, was able to get a submission in that second round. So I kind of see it playing out as Hugo's probably going to sell out for those subs early, and I'm not sure he subs Falcao. I don't believe it. He's never been subbed, and he's only been finished once, and that finish actually came from like an injury. So Falcao's super durable. Coming in short notice, I think he might even have the better cardio here. He's a BJJ black belt, tough as nails. I kind of like the dog here in Falcao. I was not expecting to like this guy, but I kind of do. So I'm going to take Falcao, and I'm going to take him to maybe lose the early rounds, but take over as the fight goes on and maybe finish Victor Hugo late in that third round. So give me Falcao to win this fight by third round knockout. Okay, next we got Norma Dumont going against Germaine de Randamie. We got Dumont, 33 years old, 5'7", with a 67-inch reach, 10-2 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. GDR, 39 years old, 5'9", with a 72.5-inch reach, 10-4 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. We have Dumont, who is the favorite, opening up -210, currently -135. GDR opening up plus 180, currently plus 115. Another line that's just crashed down. Picking GDR, and I don't feel great about it, especially after the line has moved this much. Like plus 170, sure. Plus 115, it's probably not worth it at this point because there's so many question marks and red flags. Like we haven't seen GDR. I think it's been like 3.5 years. It's been a long time ago since we've seen GDR in the cage. She's had a baby at this point. She's taken a massive layout. Like, what's she going to look like if she comes back? But the reason I am picking GDR as far as a pick goes is because if she comes back looking even as half as good as she is or was, she's going to beat Norma Dumont. You take a look at GDR, like in the last, I think like 10 years, she's lost twice, and both those losses come against Amanda Nunes. So when she's fighting anybody not named Amanda Nunes, she's typically going out there and winning. I think she's going to be the better striker here. One thing I do worry about, well, I worry about a ton of things here, but another thing I do worry about is the fact that maybe Dumont can get takedowns here, can get on top. That would be like the path. We've seen GDR taken down and held down. That's typically how she does lose. So we've seen Nunes go out there and beat her, and we've seen her lose some minutes on bottom. So that there is a path there for Dumont, but all things considered, I still think I'm going with GDR here. The 39-year-old with a 3.5-year layoff. I do want to see Dumont on the scale. She's a pretty big featherweight, so seeing her make a bantamweight is going to be interesting. But yeah, give me the dog here in GDR, but this dog money has certainly dried up. People loving them some GDR this week, and I don't blame you guys, I suppose, but I don't know if I'm betting on this fight. Moving on, we got Alex Morono going against Court McGee. We got Alex Morono, 33 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach, 23-9, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Court McGee, 39 years old, 5'11", with a 75.5-inch reach, 21-12, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Believe it or not, Alex Morono opened up -330, currently -290. Court McGee opened up plus 245. He's currently plus 245. He opened up plus 270. He's currently plus 245. So, yeah, I think it's Morono should win this fight, but -300 against anybody is kind of disgusting there. But I just think Court McGee's probably on his way out. With Court McGee, the thing he always used to rely on was the durability. This guy used to be next level durable, but I think that durability is certainly starting to wane. Getting knocked out in the first round by Jeremiah Wells, not the worst outcome in the world, but getting knocked out by 41-year-old Matt Brown, that's it's getting a little bad at that point. And not saying I don't think Morono's going to knock him out. I don't think Morono's going to knock him out or anything like that, but I could see Morono maybe hurting Court McGee. So yeah, the durability is certainly an issue. But outside of that, I do think this is somewhat of a close fight. It's just, Morono's going to be 6 years younger. Morono's going to probably be better wherever the fight goes. On the ground, Morono's always had very good jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt, never uses it, but he's very good on the ground. And then on the feet, I do like the strike and the volume of Morono a little bit better than McGee as well. So I'm taking Morono here. I'm taking Morono to win this fight by decision. Moving on, we have my favorite fight on the entire card. We got Charlie Campbell going against Trevor Peek. We got Charlie Campbell, 28 years old, 6 foot with a 72.5-inch reach, 8-2, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Trevor Peek, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach, 9-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We see that Trevor Peek is the dog. He opened up plus 170, currently plus 150. Charlie Campbell opened up minus 200, currently minus 175. So some money coming in on Peek throughout the week. And this is a very tough fight for me to kind of break down and pick. I've been going back and forth on this fight all week. It's because, Charlie Campbell is the much better mixed martial artist, and it's not even close whatsoever. Trevor Peek, where he lacks skills, though, he does make up for it with just that dog, that toughness, that durability, that will. And that's enough to win a good amount of fights. And that's kind of what worries me here, because I could see a scenario where Charlie Campbell, beats the brakes out off of Trevor Peek for the first couple minutes, and then, Trevor Peek doesn't go away, and then what, right? Like, Peek can potentially come back and finish Campbell in his own right. We kind of saw that with Chris Duncan on the Contender Series against Charlie Campbell. Charlie Campbell beat the brakes off of Chris Duncan, knocked him down multiple times, couldn't get him out of there, and then Duncan lands a big shot and gets him out of it. Like, I could see that happening. We've seen that happen with Peek as well. Like, on the Contender Series with Peek, we saw Malik Lewis beat the brakes off the dude, not get him out of there, and he gassed out trying to take this guy, Peek, out of there, who's just so hard to finish. So, ultimately, I'm going to pick Peek with, like, no confidence. Like, I can't be confident in this dude. I think he's at a huge skill deficit, but like I said, where he lacks those skills, he makes up for it with heart, durability, extremely tough to get out of there. So I think Campbell might have some success early, but I think Peek starts to get it together and maybe find a finish in that second round. So I'll take Trevor Peek to win this fight by second round KO in what is probably going to be fight of the night. All right, next we got Valter Walker going against Lukasz Brzeski. We got Walker, 26 years old, 6 foot with a, not sure on the reach. He's 11-0, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Lukasz Brzeski, he's 31 years old, 6'4", with a 78-inch reach, 8-4, and 3-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. We have Valter Walker opening up minus 400, currently minus 225. Lukasz Brzeski opening up plus 300. He's currently plus 190. So yeah, money's been pouring in on Lukasz Brzeski. It looks like throughout the week. And by the way, Valter Walker has a 78-inch reach as well. UFC Stats just updated it. So, yeah, looking into this fight, I couldn't have been any less impressed with Valter Walker. I don't think he's that great. But I said to myself, I was like, man, if Valter Walker was fighting anybody other than Lukasz Brzeski, I'd be picking against him here. Anybody, even Chase Sherman. Like, give me Chase Sherman versus Valter Walker. I'm taking Chase Sherman all day. It's just Lukasz Brzeski, I'm not sure if I can ever pick Lukasz Brzeski to win a fight, because Valter Walker, although I don't think he's that great, what he does do decently, like, he's a solid wrestler. He's huge, first and foremost, 6'6", and he can wrestle. He can get fights down to the mat, and I think that's certainly a path here for him. The cardio, it's weird. Like, in some fights, it looks atrocious. Some fights, it looks okay. Lukasz Brzeski, his cardio looks bad in every single fight. His takedown defense, I think, is a concern. So I get why people are taking the big plus money on Brzeski against Walker, but like I said, I can't pick Brzeski to win a fight against anybody in the UFC. So give me Walker. I'm actually taking Walker by decision. I don't think anybody's getting a finish here. But yeah, Walker by decision. And I can't believe this fight's on the main card. What the heck are these guys doing? But yeah, Walker by decision. All right, moving on. We got Ignacio Bahamondes going against Christos Giagos. We got Bahamondes, 26 years old, 6'3" with a 75-inch reach, 14-5 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Christos Giagos, he is 34 years old, 5'10" with a 71.5-inch reach, 20-11, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Bahamondes opening up minus 275, currently minus 320. Christos Giagos opening up plus 235, currently plus 270, and I think it's a pretty easy fight to break down here. Christos Giagos, he's probably going to go out there and look good early. He's probably going to get takedowns. He's probably going to have a ton of success, take down Bahamondes, maybe hurt Bahamondes as well. The problem with Christos Giagos always has and always will be the ability to put together a 15-minute game plan, a 15-minute fight, and that's just not the case ever with Christos Giagos for the most part. We see him go out there and have success early, but as the fight goes on, he starts to get tired, he starts to make mistakes, and his opponents typically make him pay for said mistakes. So that's kind of how I see it playing out. I think Christos Giagos is going to come out hot, probably hurt Bahamondes, probably put him on his back with takedowns, with wrestling. But as the fight goes on, I think Bahamondes is going to grow into the fight, start picking apart Giagos, going to hurt him, and get him out of there in the second round, probably by either knockout or sub. So, give me Bahamondes to win this fight. I'll say second round submission. Moving on, we got Morgan Charriere going against Jose Mariscal. We got Morgan Charriere is 28 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach, 19-9-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We got Mariscal, he's 31 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach, 15-6 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Charriere opened up -145, currently -120. Mariscal opened up as a +125 dog, currently +100. Chepe is a pretty popular underdog here, which probably because he's cashed as an underdog in his first 2 fights in the UFC. Came in there against Trevor Peek on short notice, cashed as a decent-sized dog, and then cashed as a dog against Jack Jenkins. It's a close fight. It's a very close fight. I do like both of these guys. Chepe is one of those guys that just has that dog in him. He's super tough. He's hard to put away. He's going to fight for your money, so I see why people are backing him as the dog. But you got Charriere, who's only 28 years old and has a ton of experience. Like, this guy has 29 fights on his record, and he's just good. He's good everywhere. He's a really good striker. He's a really good wrestler, grappler. When he gets on top, his ground and pound is vicious as well. He has multiple finishes in and outside the UFC. Was able to go out there and finish that Zucchini dude in the first round, which probably in one of the easiest fights in the UFC ever, but still, it was nice to see him to go out there and get that win. I think this fight's going to be a lot more competitive, obviously, for Charriere here against Chepe. I think it's going to be kind of a back-and-forth war. I just see Charriere having a little bit more ways to win. I think he's going to be just a little bit better wherever the fight goes, but again, Chepe has that dog in him. He's not going to quit. It probably goes to a split decision, but I'll take Charriere for the win, but I think the line is about accurate. Probably should be about a pick 'em here. Charriere decision. All right, moving on, we got the co-main event, Alexander Hernandez going against Damon Jackson. And we got Alexander Hernandez, 31 years old, 5'9", with a 72-inch reach, 14-7 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Damon Jackson, 35 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach, 22-6 and 1 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Hernandez opened up as a -160 favorite, currently -200. Damon Jackson opened up +140, currently +170. So I think it's a tough matchup for Damon Jackson. I think Hernandez has all the tools to win this fight, but I feel like we say that a lot with Hernandez. It's like Hernandez is a guy that just seems to kind of fall off the cliff as the fight goes on. There's multiple times where in the second and the third round he kind of gets broken. I mean, Renato Moicano fight comes to mind. The Drew Dober fight comes to mind. The Renato Moicano fight comes to mind. The Billy Q fight comes to mind. A lot of fights come to mind when you're thinking of Alexander Hernandez just getting broken down the stretch, because it happens quite a bit. But he's going against Damon Jackson here, who's going to be looking to get the fight down to the mat early and often. I think Hernandez should have the takedown defense to stuff these takedowns early. And then on the feet, I think it's just one-way traffic with the striking. And we've seen Hernandez go out there and starch guys. When he's winning fights, a lot of those wins do come in the first round. The Dariush fight, the Gritzmacher fight, a couple other wins in the first round for Hernandez. So that's how I'm kind of seeing it playing out. I think Hernandez is going to be able to stuff those takedowns early on. And I think Damon Jackson just very hittable. I really question the chin of Damon Jackson. I kind of think Hernandez knocks him out in the first round. But if this fight reaches the second, it gets interesting because, like I said, Hernandez, when the fight hits the second round, he just starts to slow. He starts to make mistakes. He starts to get hurt, and he starts to look for a way out. But I think Hernandez should get Damon Jackson out of there early, and that's what I'll pick. But it's hard to trust the guy, as always. But Hernandez KO1 for me. Then we got the main event. We got Brendan Allen going against Chris Curtis. We got Brendan Allen, 28 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 23-5, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Chris Curtis, 36 years old, 5'10" with a 75.5-inch reach, 31-10 and 2-2 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We have Brendan Allen opening up -200, currently -210. Chris Curtis opening up plus 170, currently plus 180. And yeah, I mean, I don't really understand these odds. I'm not sure how you can go back and watch their first fight and think Brendan Allen should be a 2-1 favorite here. And I mean, not much has changed since they've fought last. I mean, it has been a couple years, so Chris Curtis has gotten older, maybe starting to decline a little bit. Brendan Allen obviously maybe improving a little bit, but since then Brendan Allen's been looking good. But he's looking good against guys like Paul Craig, we worry about the durability, we worry about the takedown defense. He's been looking good against Krzysztof Jaka, who got cut, Andre Muniz, who has durability, cardio issues, Bruno Silva, who's looked like a shell of himself, and Jacob Malkoun in a fight that I thought Brendan Allen lost, and then Sam Alvey, who's been cut as well. So yeah, I think this is going to be Brendan Allen's toughest matchup since these two fought back in 2021. And I think it's a tricky matchup for Brendan Allen because Chris Curtis, unlike a lot of those guys that I just mentioned, Chris Curtis has elite takedown defense. On paper, 92%. Chris Curtis has elite durability. This guy has 41 fights. He's only been finished like 2 times. This is Chris Curtis, who has elite cardio. He's not going to slow down. So, yeah, it's a tough matchup for Brendan Allen. The only thing that worries me is like I said at the beginning, where Allen's kind of on the up trajectory, whereas Chris Curtis is on the down trajectory. So maybe Allen is getting Chris Curtis at the right time here, but in a fight where I think it is going to take place on the feet, because for one, I'm not sure Brendan Allen's going to be able to take down Chris Curtis, and for two, I'm not even sure if Brendan Allen's going to try, because there's plenty of fights where Brendan Allen just refuses to get the fight down to the mat. So in a fight that's going to take place standing, I think I got to lean to the dog here, and Chris Curtis, who's going to be much more defensively sound, much more durable as well. Allen, he's very hittable. Although he's improved, he's very hittable. He's been knocked out time and time again. So, yeah, I'm taking Chris Curtis here. I'm taking Chris Curtis to win this fight by 3rd round knockout. I think Brendan Allen might probably do the better work in terms of the minute winning. Chris Curtis, not the best minute winner, but I think eventually Chris Curtis, over 25 minutes, is going to find the chin of Brendan Allen there. So, yeah, give me Chris Curtis by 3rd round knockout. There you guys have it. Sorry for the shorter breakdown. I try to get through it as fast as possible. I have to cough really bad and blow my nose really bad. So I'm going to go do that. And then, like I said, be on the lookout for the UFC 300 breakdown. That will be out, I'm hoping, Saturday. I just have to tape a couple more fights. And then, yeah, that's about it, guys. Best of luck for UFC Vegas 90, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. See you later.